welcome back to Bookish Islander. My name is Juan, and every week I publish a video in which I talk about books. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about all the books I read in November 2021. I had a great reading month. I finished a total of 5 novels that I loved. My reading took me to places such as India, England, Germany, Portugal, and Brazil. I read in 2 languages, English and Portuguese, and I read 1 book in translation. Now, you can watch this whole video if you like, that would be very nice, or you can go to the description box for timestamps so you can skip forward to the book or books you are interested in. You will also find links to each of the books I discuss, except one that doesn't currently seem to be available, in the description box. If you click the links, you will be able to buy the books at good prices and get free worldwide delivery from the Book Depository. I've also included links to my 2 wish lists because my birthday is next month. So if you'd like to buy me a book, all you need to do is check out my wish list and select as many books as you'd like to send me. Okay, so the first book I want to talk about today is The Life and Times of Michael Kay by J.M. Coetzee. People who follow my channel and watch my videos regularly know that I am a fan of J.M. Coetzee's writing. One of my all-time favorite novels by this South African-born writer who now lives in Australia is his 1999 Booker Prize-winning novel Disgrace. But that is not the only time he's won the Booker Prize. John Maxwell Coetzee had won the Booker Prize before in 1983 with this novel Life and Times of Michael Kay. This novel is set during a fictitious civil war in South Africa during the apartheid era. Michael Kay is a poor man who travels from Cape Town to a small town named Prince Albert, which is his mother's birthplace. Much of the novel takes place during Michael Kay's journey. When the civil war begins and Michael's mother, Anne, becomes sick, they decide to leave the city and travel to her birthplace, perhaps so that she can die there. But with war raging and martial law being imposed, their journey to the countryside will be incredibly difficult. Apart from obvious Kafka connections, it was impossible for me not to think about the different outgoing refugee crises in Europe and North America, for example. I saw Michael Kay as one of those thousands of anonymous people who have to leave their homes because of war or other factors and go on incredibly difficult and dangerous journeys only to be abused and or ignored. Now, Michael Kay is not strictly speaking a migrant in the sense that he's not trying to go somewhere else in search of a better life. He's trying to escape from a situation, but he doesn't have a much better destination in mind. Yes, he wants to go to Prince Albert, but it's not like life is going to be better for him there. The early part of the novel is about that journey, but then other things happen and the point of view momentarily changes to another character, but I'm not going to go into that because that would be spoiling this novel. Life and Times of Michael Kay is one of the best novels by J.M. Coetzee that I have ever read so far. I still have many books by him that I have not read, but every time I read something by him, I get more excited about reading more of his books. So, let me know, have you read Life and Times of Michael Kay? If so, I would love to hear what you thought about it in the comment section below. Now, the second book I wanted to talk about today is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. But I'm actually not going to say much about it here because I reviewed it only last week. So I'm just going to link to that review in case you want to hear my thoughts on this novel. Which also won the Booker Prize, in this case in 1981. But that was just a coincidence. I did not set out to read 2 books that had won the Booker Prize in November, I promise you that. Anyway, I enjoyed reading Midnight's Children and I would recommend it to everyone, but I have some complicated thoughts about it too. And because I hate repeating myself, I'm just going to ask you to check out my review if you want to know more. Now, a book I can talk about today because I have never talked about it before on a video is The Immigrants by W.G. Sebald. This is my 3rd book by this German author. I have also read already Austerlitz and the Rings of Saturn. I read Austerlitz many years ago and perhaps I will read it again at some point, but I read the Rings of Saturn only in October. So you'll find more information about that book in my October wrap-up, which I'm also going to link to here. Now, The Immigrants first came out in German in 1992 as Die Ausgewanderten, but it is widely available in English translation, of course, and indeed it was the only book I read in translation last month. Like all the other books by Sebald that I have read so far, this is semi-autobiographical. The narrator, who I took to be Sebald, but perhaps I shouldn't have, talks about different, or rather talks to different people, usually quite elderly people who tell him their life stories. All those people, 4 in total, are immigrants who left Central Europe for either England or the United States when they were younger. The Immigrants tackles one of my favorite themes in literature, which is memory, but it also deals with what it is like to be a foreigner and what that means. And as someone who was once an immigrant and perhaps will be one again, this is something that particularly speaks to me. But this novel also deals with trauma, which is when the novel gets a little bit tough, but never unbearably so. I had a great time reading The Immigrants. Sebald's prose makes me wish my German was good enough so that I could read this novel in German. And I am working very hard on my German at the moment, and I hope to be able to read this and other German novels that I've read in translation in their original language at some point. That is what I'm working toward anyway. Luckily, I can read in Portuguese, so I was able to finally read A Sibylla, which is a Portuguese novel from 1954. Its author, Agostina Bessa Luís, is considered one of the best Portuguese writers from the 20th century, which is why I really do not understand why A Sibylla, or The Sibyl, is not currently available in English translation. This is the only novel I'm not able to link to in the description box for this video, and I think it is such a shame because it is an amazing novel set in the rural northern part of Portugal during roughly the first part of the 20th or the first half of the 20th century. This must be one of the most important novels in Portuguese literature, so it should be translated and it should be available in all major world languages. So if any publishers are watching this video, this is my plea to you. Translate A Sibylla into English and publish it. Okay, the last novel I have for you today, which I read last month, was also originally written in Portuguese, and I read it in Portuguese, but I know that it's coming out in English translation in 2022. So I would like you to make a note of the title and the name of the author. The original title of this novel is Marrom e Amarelo, but it is going to come out in English translation next year as Phenotypes. Its author is the Brazilian writer Paulo Scott. Marrom e Amarelo, or Phenotypes, is a novel about how insidious racism is in present-day Brazil. Federico and Lourenço are brothers. Their father is black and their mother is white. Lourenço is a lot darker than Federico, and that means that Federico, who is the novel's protagonist, can pass as white. In the wake of student protests about affirmative action quotas, Federico joins a governmental committee that is charged with overseeing a piece of software designed to establish who is black enough to be admitted to university under those quotas. But this is only part of the novel. The narrative is not linear, so apart from being privy to one of the committee meetings or Federico's involvement with other members of it, we also get different episodes from his childhood and youth. Apart from being one of the best explorations on racism that I have read, Phenotypes is a compelling novel because of its clever structure and sparkling dialogue. If you can read in Portuguese, you can get the novel from the description box right now and read it. But if you read in English, you will have to wait until January 2022 to buy this great novel. The good news is that you only need to wait for about a month and it will be available. I'm just so excited for people to read Phenotypes and talk about it. So I hope that I have convinced at least one or two of you to do so.